Yankees Files podcast. We are back. I'm Will Harris, you're Alec Whipple, and the rest of you are fans of the team with the highest WRC plus in baseball, with the highest World Series odds per PECOTA in the American League. The only team that employs Gleyber Torres, who is one of the second basemen in baseball. That team is, of course, the New York Yankees, who are currently trailing 4-3, but also now carry Jasson Dominguez on their 28-man roster. So, Whipple, there's a lot to get into. I'd also like to apologize to our audience for my echoey and uncharacteristically poor sound quality. I'm in like an empty room with no soft surfaces in it. I'm very self-conscious about it.
Are you in prison?
To some might describe it that way. But improvements will be coming soon, so please bear with me. Anyway, Whipple, there's a ton to get into on this podcast, but first, how are you doing?
I do like the description. I'm just in an empty room. Like, you've been all over the place, and now you're just in a room with nothing on it, just cold walls. I'm like, are you okay? Are you alive?
I'll be okay.
You're you're on site, on location. It's what the fans deserve.
That's true. I'll be at the game on Wednesday.
Right. You could be sitting back in a Baltimore apartment from afar, but you've braved the Acela corridor to get up to New York and start covering the Yankees. So I
remember when Joe Biden was calling himself Amtrak Joe because he would take it from Delaware to DC,
which is like 2 minutes.
I think I'm Amtrak Joe now.
You are more. Like,
yeah.
Now that I understand the distance between train stops, you are doing Amtrak Joe's work. Although I took it from Williamsburg to New Jersey, which is an 8-hour train ride. And
that's terrible because you're south of the Acela. Did you have to connect in DC?
Yeah. Yep. Steam engines. So anyway, we are very off topic. And
I think we can be a transit podcast.
I would love to be a transit podcast. I mean, if we're both going to be in New York, the transit center of the country, some say, and we've kind of been up and down the coast.
Look, we've seen a Yankees blogger turn into a transit blogger already. Right. The path has been blazed. Do you think anyone gets that?
No, I'm like pretty. I sat on the subway, the one train on a Sunday morning, and I really thought I was sitting next to him.
Well, that's the wrong side of the island for him to be on.
I know, but it looked like him. Like, maybe he's just doing a Sunday morning joyride. But the Yankees are a team that is in New York, where all these trains are, and that's called a transition. But
in the biz,
Jasson Dominguez is a Yankee, and the Yankees are in New York, and Jasson Dominguez is in New York, and it's all coming together. I'm doing well. I am watching from not New York, from a little bit farther away, but I've enjoyed following today kind of the buzz around Dominguez, and really it's been an up and down, I think, last few days in the Dominguez area, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But to go from, well, he's going to get called up on September 1st, and then he didn't, and there's no lane for him, and then he gets called up and today, and he's an everyday player. I mean, it's a little bit hard to process, but seeing him in the lineup and seeing him back in the field, and got my Dominguez banner. So I've been repping since he was in Somerset. It's really exciting, I think, to know not just he's going to be in New York, but he's going to be playing every day. And I don't know what that looks like. We could talk about that, but just that, they didn't call him up to be on the bench. I think what we've gleaned from the last few days is that they really were not going to call him up unless he was an everyday player. And what we thought was they didn't think that at this point, and now they do, which is, confusing, but good for the Yankees. And I'm really excited. I think it's for a team that certainly has had its ups and downs in the last few weeks, I think it's a really great shot in the arm.
Yeah, so I definitely think it's appropriate to start with Dominguez. And maybe the right place to start is, what are you expecting him to bring? You called him a shot in the arm, and I'm sure the Yankees hope that he will bring that. But I doubt you're expecting the 160 WRC plus that he brought to last year's team. So what do you think the Dominguez experience will be? Fangraphs has him at something like a league average hitter and something like replacement level, but the projections are for so few games that I don't think they're really even, relevant on the WAR side, but they have him as a league average hitter. How do you expect him to be used, and what do you expect that he will bring to the roster?
Well, I think it's interesting. The question for me is he going to be in center or left? And I think there's probably, they'll probably try some of both as we've seen tonight. I don't think he's just automatically filling in for Verdugo, but I think definitely a way to limit Aaron Judge's time in center field. And maybe there's different, a few different combinations that they're going to rotate between. But I think at this point in the season, it's just nice to have another center field option who they trust and believe in. And like, I hate to say that Trent Grisham is not that guy, but apparently he's not really that guy. So, looking from the Yankees' eyes, it's a guy they will actually play out there on a semi-regular basis if you want to get Judge at a DH day or a Soto a DH day. I mean, the flexibility is just really, I think, nice. And to have a young guy who, we haven't seen Jasson Dominguez for more than a week at a time. So like, people still have the memory of the 160 WRC plus. But I think what you're saying about him being a replacement level player shows the bar is pretty low right now for that fourth outfield spot or just another outfielder. And if he can take away a lot of playing time from Verdugo and maybe a little playing time from the other guys, I mean, I feel like there is a rotation that allows everybody to play the amounts that we would want them to. And for Dominguez to get a chance to be the league average bat, but hopefully have the potential for at least to make an impact in certain ways, maybe like anything more than that. I don't know how much more than that, but anything more than league average is just so much better than we've been getting from Verdugo or, whatever the fourth outfield spot is. And that potential is there. I mean, I don't know how high, but it is there, like to be something that can impact this lineup in October. I think lastly, just the left-handed bat, like you said, he's much better from his left side than his right side. I think having a guy who can be an impact lefty bat is something this team is really struggling with right now. So that is exciting. Him and Jazz and Wells, it starts to all look a little more balanced. And I know you hate balance, but good balance.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. First, I agree. Like, Trent Grisham was there this whole time, and the Yankees elected to do nothing with him. And I don't think the Yankees made the right choice, but that's the choice the Yankees made. And I do expect, because it's what they told us, that now that Dominguez is up, he will play basically every day. My concern, and maybe it's just because of Brady Singer's splits and the desire to give Stanton kind of his scheduled off day. I am concerned that Dominguez got called up and Judge went to DH and Stanton sat and Verdugo's still in there. Now, of course, Verdugo hits the home run, lefty platoon advantage, whatever. Like, in the same way that I believe the Yankees when they said if Dominguez were to come up, he would come up to get everyday playing time, I believe the Yankees when they said that they think Alex Verdugo is a good baseball player. And that has me feeling quite concerned about the prospect of Alex Verdugo still playing a lot, even though Jasson Dominguez is here. And I don't know what that means for the future of certain players, because I don't expect Alex Verdugo to be back next year, but like, it does raise concerns for me about the playoff roster. I'd much rather have Trent Grisham on the playoff roster than Alex Verdugo. And if Jasson Dominguez is going to be there, I don't know how Trent Grisham makes it, given that it's not clear to me that they've given up on Alex Verdugo at this point. Like, there are a lot of open questions as I see it, as it relates to the Verdugo situation. And it's too early in this, this stint for Dominguez for us to really know how those will resolve themselves. Now, to your point, if Dominguez is replacing Verdugo, Absolutely. A league average bat who can play solid enough defense in left field and center field is a good player to have and a better player than they've had. But Dominguez and Verdugo is not a better 1-2 to have in the lineup than Dominguez and Stanton, or even Verdugo and Stanton. Like, and that's where I'm getting concerned. And that for me is the biggest question about how this stint for him is going to go and how they're going to manage not only the rest of the regular season, but also the postseason roster. Because, like, what if they did mean it when they said they really believed in Verdugo? And what does that necessarily mean about the way they plan on handling those other outfield and DH spots? Like, am I wrong to be concerned about that?
So are you concerned about Giancarlo Stanton being benched for Dominguez?
I'm concerned about Judge, Soto, Stanton, and Dominguez not definitely being the four people who get the most plate appearances from the outfield and DH spot.
But I guess, like, is there a doubt in your mind that Judge and Soto are not going to play in the games that matter most? Like,
no.
Right, like, okay, so then
but it should be Judge, Soto, Stanton, Dominguez in that order.
Right. But, like, I guess what you're saying is, like, you are worried that Dominguez is siphoning playing time from Stanton instead of Verdugo. And
I'm worried that Dominguez and Verdugo are siphoning playing time from Stanton, rather than Dominguez just siphoning playing time from Verdugo.
I don't feel like, I mean, this is not me against you. This is me, like, kind of realizing what you're saying and be like, I don't feel like that's fair to Stanton, who is actually, I feel like, going to be an important part of this roster, specifically in the playoffs, given the way.
I mean, it wouldn't be fair to Stanton,
right?
But here he is not playing.
What I feel like I could see is that Dominguez is not going to get the playing time that we think he is, or he gets it, and then in game one of the playoffs, it's the same lineup, minus Dominguez in game two. And, like, I guess, I don't know, like, I have a hard time seeing Giancarlo Stanton not getting regular playing time from here on out. So, like, yeah, maybe his scheduled off days, but, like, in the Orioles series or in, the ALDS, like, he has to be in that lineup. I don't feel like against a tough righty. I mean, I know, righty, lefty, righty, but it's the playoffs. Like, you got to play Giancarlo Stanton. So now I'm a little bit worried too. Like, I guess I was thinking more like, okay, like, Grisham, that's fine. Like, that, I don't like that, but, like, that is what it is. But
yeah, they telegraphed that Grisham is not.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully it's just the first day, of, the rest of this. But you are right in that we do kind of have to take them at their word when they say that. They've backed it up. I mean, Verdugo has played pretty much every game. He's been a regular player, even when I think the call for him to get, benched for a few games or just, like, subbed out occasionally. I mean, I think of, like, the double headers they've played, and certain guys start both ends of the double headers, and Verdugo's, like, always been one of the guys who starts both ends of the double headers. It's like Stanton and Jazz who sat, and even Glaber sat in the one against the Angels. Like, so it is, I am a little bit concerned, but I feel like the risk is going to come more to Dominguez himself than Stanton. I have a hard time seeing it. I don't know.
It would be very surprising to me if Dominguez's playing time is limited in almost any way.
So rubber's got to hit the road somewhere, I guess. So
it does, yeah, and I'm worried about where that's going to be.
Right. I feel like every day the lineup drop is going to be very interesting.
Like, are we going to see first base Aaron Judge just, like, randomly one time just because they don't know what else to do?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I'm mostly joking.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, I don't know. I mean, it's a conundrum. It's a good problem to have. It's always what you talk about, having too many good guys. But I feel like in this case, the perception of the good guys, is slightly higher on one end than it is the other end.
Yeah.
It is, the whole resolution of who is going to go down. It is interesting that it was DJ LeMahieu, because I think there are other options they could have gone with it. I know it was an IL stint, but, like, it seems like their hand was kind of forced, and the fact that his hip had been bothering him for a few weeks, and, that's the injury he went on the IL with, but suddenly today was the day that it was too much. I don't know. What do you think about that?
The straw that broke the robot's hip.
Because there are other ways they could have gone with it, and I think it's telling that that's the way they went.
Yeah, you texted me something along the lines of like, that's a conveniently timed injury or, something like that. And
Well, they said his hip has been bothering him for weeks. So
yeah,
suddenly today, the hip woke up and it was too much conveniently.
yeah. So I'm with you on like, I'm not accusing the Yankees of misusing the injured list or any, of this Billy Epler stuff, but it is it is definitely interesting that they got to further kick the can down the road on the DJ Verdugo, roster situation, without having to make a 40-man move beyond Anthony Misevich.
Right.
Like,
Well,
and like I'm glad that it worked out that way. I'm glad that they got to keep their options open, but I did find it, just as you suggested, it was like, wow, that did work out about as well as the Yankees could have drawn it up, didn't it?
yeah.
Interesting.
The other thing, while we're talking about Verdugo, this really pissed me off last week when seeing guys who could have used a phantom IL trip. Apparently, when Aaron Boone is talking about guys who are, should or shouldn't run, and it comes out that he says Verdugo's too beat up, I know he's hustling. So when did that become acceptable for Alex Verdugo to be too beat up to hustle, whereas other guys are now being held to different standards than him? And if he's too beat up, why doesn't he go on the IL or phantom IL? I mean, the amount of like bending
If
over
he's too beat up, why
backwards
doesn't he not play left field once?
right. Like, why is that an excuse for him? It's like he's getting the Aaron Judge treatment, like the Mig Spring beat up. And I know we joke about with Judge, but Verdugo is not good enough to justify that kind of treatment. So yeah, I think we talked about all the stuff with Glaber, and like it or not, like if that's the standard Aaron Boone wants to set, I think it is entirely inappropriate for him to suddenly not apply that standard to other people. And Alex Verdugo should not get any kind of deferential treatment. But here we are talking about him potentially taking play time away from one of the best playoff hitters the Yankees have had in their recent history.
Yeah, so it's worth talking about the Verdugo hustling thing. So I appreciate you bringing it up. I have been a staunch defender of Aaron Boone in, many of the decisions he's made and a lot of what he's done. As you know, I think a lot of the criticism that he gets is unfounded. And, I just think that people don't treat him fairly. With that said, it is absolutely legitimate to criticize Aaron Boone for the way that he has handled the hustling question. There are certain players who have to hustle. There are certain who don't. There are certain players who get a pass. There are certain who don't. Whether or not a player gets a pass is completely divorced from the quality of his play, either recently or over the course of his career, or over the course of his tenure as a Yankee, or over the course of the year, or whatever it might be. It doesn't make any sense. And it encourages people to single guys out because that's the signal the manager is giving. Who's been benched for not hustling? Gleyber Torres. When was the last time you saw Anthony Rizzo or Aaron Judge or Alex Verdugo or, countless other guys on this team really, put their head down and hustle out a ground ball to first base? Now, I'm not saying everyone should be doing that. And I'm not saying everyone's MO should be that they maximize the number of bases they can get on every ball in play. I understand that exercising some restraint and caution in service of one's health can be a good idea. But the question that persists is, when you single out Gleyber, why Gleyber and why then? Because we have countless examples of other guys doing the same stuff. So what is it? And I think that is among the most legitimate criticisms of Aaron Boone, because the way that he's handled that stuff makes absolutely no sense. The way he handled it with Verdugo made absolutely no sense, particularly making the excuse for Verdugo that he was beat up, and then Verdugo getting asked and saying, I'm not beat up, I feel fine. Like,
Right.
The whole situation was so weird, and it's absolutely not clear what Alex Verdugo has done for this team to earn the goodwill with which he was treated in that situation by Aaron Boone, nor what Gleyber Torres did to lose it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It really bothered me. It really bothered me.
I think if I had to guess, it would be that, because I think of like Verdugo and Donaldson and like guys in the past who he's kind of given a pass to. I feel like Aaron Boone fashions himself like, the mentor, the teacher, and for in his mind, like some guys are just never not going to respond to that. So he doesn't want to like make them upset. And he's like, I know the way to communicate with them. And it's not like singling them out. Whereas like Gleyber, maybe he figured like, oh, this is someone who will respond to, I want to say getting embarrassed, but like something like that. And like, I think that's one, really like misguided. But two, if you're going to act like that, you can't let that seep out into the public. And you basically made this a very public thing. So you have to be prepared for a response. And then your response is like, and I know, again, with like Aaron Boone doesn't give straight answers. Yeah. Okay. He's media trained. He knows what to say. He knows how to deflect criticism. But I think when you are going to put your like leadership on full display, you got to be ready to go with like something like very straightforward that like gets your point across, that doesn't leave any questions, that applies a standard, that like articulates what you're thinking. I just think he opened himself up to it, and he couldn't really follow that up. And that's disappointing. I was definitely more down on Aaron Boone than you. I have come back, but now I'm starting to have questions again after this year. I just think, I don't know. I hate to be that guy, but like there is something with the way this team has played that kind of annoys me at times. It's very sloppy. Like objectively, I think it's sloppy. And the manager, and I know like that's very like subjective, I guess, but like I think the way that the manager is messaging this is like my real, I protect certain guys and I don't protect other guys, and like it's all fine. Like I don't know. There's no consistency. I don't want to have this like argument again, but the Gleyber Verdugo stuff has really showed me that like he doesn't, I don't know what his like thought process is, but he just doesn't like, I don't think he sometimes thinks about things that he should think about.
Yeah, I think
I know you're not going to say
my criticism of Boone in this case is like it has nothing to do with the team, the quality of play on the field as well. Obviously, it has to do with the quality of play on the field because that's what he's commenting on. But it doesn't have to do with the quality of play on the field in the sense that, like, how do I want to say this? Aaron Boone's handling of the Verdugo not hustling situation doesn't have to do, to me, with the team's quality, with the quality of the team's play on the field. It has to do with the conduct of one player. My gripe with Aaron Boone's handling of that situation is that it is out of step with how he has handled similar conduct, and I don't appreciate that from a manager. I have trouble making the next leap that you make and saying, oh, Aaron Boone handled this way, and that's probably why this thing that happens on the field that I don't like happens. Like, as you know, I'm very, very skeptical of the impact that managers have on the quality of a team's play. I booed Bruce Bochy when I went to the game in Texas last week because, if his managerial skill is so important, he's doing an awful job this year, and he deserves to know. So I have trouble making that next leap, but I agree that Aaron Boone handled this really poorly. Now, given that I don't think managers make that all that much of a wins and losses difference, this stuff should be even more important to me in my evaluation of a manager. And I think he really messed up at it. Do I think he should lose his job over it? No, because I consistently see managers go out and say way more heinous stuff. I'm talking about Ron Washington, just to be clear.
He's like in his own category. I don't. I would not wish Ron Washington managing someone's team on my worst enemy. It's
yeah, no, I'm with you there. But yeah, it was really bad by Boone. I really didn't like it. And the biggest question to me is just like, what are you getting out of defending Alex Verdugo this way? He's not bringing anything to the team. Hopefully, he's about to lose a bunch of playing time. He's not been good. Like, is it, I hate to entertain this, but like, we know that Judge was kind of the standard bearer, like the flag carrier for the sign Verdugo crowd. Do we think there's any appeasement of Aaron Judge going on? And if there, first of all, let me get out ahead of this. If there is, that's a terrible way to run the team. But
okay, but that kind
do
of
you think that's in action there?
I think Aaron Judge has more of an influence than like we would like him to. I think that's becoming clear. And
To be clear, I'd like him to have no influence.
but like, I guess, I mean, this is probably more of an off-season conversation, and maybe, you know, notwithstanding what happens. But like, say the Yankees do not win the World Series, like, I feel like something, I don't know. Like, I want, whenever somebody says I don't want the nerds running the team, like, I want the nerds, I want Brian Cashman exacting like full control over this team. So like, if Brian Cashman has to like get rid of players that Aaron Judge wants, or fire Aaron Boone because to show Aaron Judge who's in charge. I know this is like far beyond anything that could be quantified, but I am worried that like it's a little bit too much like, everything is built around what Aaron Judge wants instead of like the player that Aaron Judge is. And we've seen these decisions that don't maximize the Yankees' ability to win. You have to wonder like where that's coming from. Because objectively these decisions are not the right decisions. So I don't know. That doesn't really have as much to do with Aaron Boone as it does like some of the players, but
yeah,
it is interesting. It's so far beyond, what you're going to get by looking at like, Fangraphs or Baseball Reference. And I hope it is more, we're blowing it out to be a little more than it is. But, you look at stuff like this, and Alex Verdugo should not be on the starting 9, should not be on the starting 26, should not be like employed. I don't know.
It's just such a problem.
And he hit a home run today, so
Yeah, of course, because suddenly his job was threatened, and now he's hitting the ball over the fence.
I was like IKF. Remember, IKF always had the knack of like getting the one hit that like saved his job.
He did. I just want to point out regarding the sloppy play coming into tonight. The Yankees were above league average in defensive efficiency. They were in, which is just, do balls in play end up being outs or not? They were within 1/1000th of the Baltimore Orioles. They were ahead of league average, ahead of the Phillies, ahead of the Royals, ahead of the Padres, ahead of the Braves, ahead of the Diamondbacks. So like, I don't know what you consider sloppy play, but I do want to fight back a little bit against this notion. Like, and maybe this is a broader conversation for us to get into. As I pointed out, the Yankees have the highest World Series odds per PECOTA. The PECOTA projections and the Fangraphs playoff odds have them winning the AL East with the best record in the American League. Like, there is this like overriding narrative that the Yankees have been terrible. And sure, the Yankees have had stretches of not playing well. They've also had stretches of playing well. On the season, no team in the American League, I actually forgot to check how the Guardians are doing, but like maybe one team in the American League has been better on the season. Like, it just is a little bit tired for me. And it feels very like Mike and the Mad Dog WFAN to look at the team when, sure, things are not going as well as they were, but things are going as well as they are for any team in the American League, and insist that like you need to tear the whole thing down and something is seriously wrong and all this stuff. It's like,
I don't know,
man. And maybe this is just, further reflective of like how I interact with the Yankees and watch baseball, which is like, all right, if I think they're good, then and I have enough evidence to say that they're good, then like I don't care about the timing of the wins and losses. I don't care about like any of that stuff. It's just where do they end up? But it just, I don't know. I get so exhausted with the whole thing of like, the Yankees are so flawed. The Yankees don't have a World Series roster, blah, blah, blah. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
A bunch of teams are going to make the tournament, and one of them is going to win the World Series.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
is that
yeah.
team going to be the best team in baseball? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Are the Yankees the best team in baseball? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know.
I mean, I think there's a few. Well, the most important thing for me is no team has really been good this year, as we've been saying all year. So it's like every team is like fan base feels like this. And I personally, my anguish comes from the fact that I feel like the Yankees should be a lot better than they are, probably more so than like I feel like other teams should be. Maybe I'm just a fan. I mean, it just could be homer bias, but it's frustrating to see that, the results come out the way they are. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like the way I watch the Yankees is like they should be up by 4 or 5 games. And I know that's not the case because, they're not because of their overall talent level, because that's just the way baseball goes sometimes. And, like some games you blow because you're bad and some games you blow because bad luck. And like it's a long season, all of that. But I get worried. I think more than frustrated, I just get worried that like they play some games where they make a few plays that are sloppy. Like I'm going to push back and say like this team is not, sometimes they play really well and it's tight and it looks good, and sometimes they make multiple errors in an inning and they lose games they should win, and that is not on one person. It's not on Clay Holmes. It's on a bunch of people, like we said, in the game against Baltimore. Like that's Holmes had a little bit of contribution, but mostly Volpe and Verdugo. And, today, like in the first inning, you have multiple errors. In the National Series, in the Rangers series, like there's just a lot of stuff that like I personally am happy where the Yankees are in the standings, but like I want them to be the best versions of themselves to give them the best chance of winning in October. And when I see plays like that, it makes me worried. I think some people take that like to the nth degree and they're like, oh yeah, no, this confirms that they're not ever going to be good enough to win the World Series. I think that's ridiculous. Look at the league, look at the team. They have the guys. It would be heartbreaking for me to see this team not win in October because of a few plays that they make, or because, something goes the way it shouldn't, that they had the ability to control. And I know that's just part of baseball, but I just like, I want this so badly for them because I know this team is so talented. So yeah, like I feel like I was at the Zen point earlier, and now it's like, it's getting later and I'm seeing it a little more, but at the same time, like the standings are the standings, and the Yankees lose on any one given day. It's not going to change, the balance of the standings. I mean, they're right in it. There's 20 games left. So I think for, kind of speaking for more of the less like the calm, cool, collected fan, I think I'm just more worried, but I know there are people who use it to be ridiculous. And if the Yankees go into October with Alex Verdugo in left field, not Jason Dominguez, they still have a really good team that could win the World Series. Like Dominguez is a part of that, but one player is not going to take away from this roster. I think that's another thing. People are acting like, well, now Dominguez is here, everything's saved. It would have been fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I know it's a different
WRC
way.
plus
Yeah.
number that I said at the beginning of this podcast was going into today. So all it had in it from Jason Dominguez was a big fat 0 from the Tigers game. Like, I don't know, man. There is the desire to see something that happens in the regular season and treat it as disqualifying is almost always misguided, unless the reason that you're saying it's disqualifying is literally because the team was removed from a playoff spot as a result of it. Like, as we covered at the end of the last postseason, and as we've talked about repeatedly, there is almost no way to reliably project how a postseason will go. The series are too short. Baseball is too high variance. So anytime that someone sees something in the regular season and says, hey, that means this team is going to do X in October, like they probably also have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. which I imagine would be profitable because you could, charge tolls and stuff. But anyway,
there are a few bridges in Brooklyn.
I can think of a few. But I guess the question is like, how do you own the whole bridge? Or like when it connects to Manhattan or it connects to Staten Island, do you not own that part? When does it stop being Brooklyn? These are all.
That's why these bridges aren't privately owned.
I guess so.
Williamsburg Bridge, which is where I live, but not that Williamsburg.
Do you ever think about, good point. Do you ever think about how do they decide where Brooklyn becomes Queens and where Brooklyn and Queens become Long Island?
I really like, as someone who took an Uber from Brooklyn to Queens or Queens to Brooklyn, I like really thought there were points where I was like, we're in Brooklyn, and I looked and it was Queens. So
yeah. And then they're both like that is just Long Island. Like that's all the same island. So how do they
the Long Island?
It is. Some people are calling it America's longest island, which I don't know if that's true or not.
I read an article that was like, which Williamsburg is better, and they compared like the one in Virginia to the one in the Brooklyn one, and it was like this one has like colonial houses, and then this one has like trendy thrift shops. This one you can milk cows, and then this one you can like go listen to like live music. I was like, who wrote this article?
It sounds like an awesome. They should have made a Venn diagram.
Yeah, they're like, there are no cows in Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
As far as they know.
That probably, yeah.
That was a good tangent.
We've had a few.
I'm proud of us.
But that signifies, I think it's a metaphor for the way this point of the regular season should be treated as something to not get, you can watch, you can enjoy, you can root for your team, but every one game don't get that upset over.
So did you happen to catch on the broadcast who tonight's Name That Yankee was? Was
his middle name Pitcher?
That's exactly where I was going with this. So, Ian Kennedy was frequently called IPK on the internet. And that's because his middle name is Patrick. So his initials were IPK. But one time, Whipple and I were talking about Ian Kennedy and what the P in IPK might stand for as Aaron Judge singles in Gleyber Torres to tie the game. And we simultaneously were like, pitcher?
Amazing.
Ian Pitcher Kennedy. All right, Whipple.
Wait. I have another tangent. So I was playing MLB The Show, and like when you get to, if you do some like my season, they do like auto-generated draft players, and if you go far enough, these names can get pretty funny. One of them was Ball Player X Thompson.
No.
So the guy's name was Ball Player.
That's incredible.
I'm like, yes, I'm this guy drafting Ball Player Thompson. Like, he's gonna be good. So
handshake meme. Hunter S. Ball Player X Thompson.
All right, we gotta wrap this up.
Yeah, we do. This has gotten out of control. Oh, I do just want to comment quickly. So I saw the Yankees in their 8-4 victory at Globe Life Field.
Oh yeah.
On Labor Day, which was really cool. Shout out to former podcast guest Matt Harris. Shout out to Herman Lopez, follower of the podcast, not Domingo Herman, who I was able to meet at the game. Shout out to Giancarlo Stanton for hitting a world famous home run. Shout out to Gleyber Torres for letting me watch him play baseball. Shout out to Clayton Walter Holmes for coming in and shutting things down.
His last game as the Yankees closer.
For now.
I'm just getting under your skin.
I thought the stadium was really cool. I had never been to a game in a dome before. I don't think I had ever really had an opportunity to, because it's not like I was ever going down to Tampa during the regular season or like up to Toronto or anything.
I went to Chase last spring for the World Baseball Classic, so that was my experience too. It's not an AL East experience.
No, not at all. And I thought it was really cool. Like, first of all, the stadium was just very nice. Like, it didn't feel like they're could really have been a bad seat in the house as Austin Wells homers to give the Yankees a 7-4 lead, which is awesome. It didn't feel like there was really a bad seat in the house. I love the world famous home run. The like great access to food options, concourses were super walkable. There's the very cool like Texas Live area that they've made out of the whole place with the old stadium and the new stadium and all that stuff. So yeah, it was a very different experience of watching baseball. With the roof closed and stuff, but it was really cool. So that was a cool experience. Shout out to the people that I saw there. Whipple, we are getting to the end of this thing. It is time to do confidence, knowing that Austin Wells, one of the best catchers in Major League Baseball, just hit a world famous home run to put the Yankees up 7-4. What is your level of confidence in this team?
I'm going to stay at 8.5. It hasn't been it's okay, trending better than it was at the middle of last week, but about a 3-3 week last week, hopefully a win tonight. But the standings are, kind of unchanged. Yankees are holding on to that half game lead. Hopefully that goes up. But I think I'm happy about Dominguez, but I think I still share some of the concerns that we discussed. Pitching definitely trending in a good direction. I mean, everything's trending well. I'm not sure, I love the like bullpen machinations and I kind of want to see what it all looks like. But they still have some work to do. And I think my confidence would be increased if really Aaron Judge and Juan Soto started hitting like they can hit again. So it's all this other stuff's kind of cursory, but I can't really go up until, I just feel like everything's running smoothly again, and it will, but it's just at this moment, hopefully in a week, we'll be like, great, everything's back on track. And this was the beginning of it. Positive signs, but not all the way there yet. I think 8.5 is still very good for the first place team.
Yeah, I think 8.5 is appropriate. I think you hit on one thing, which is Judge and Soto have been invisible for longer than we're accustomed to at this point. And those guys breaking out and becoming, extra base hit machines again will be very exciting and very beneficial to this team. The other thing that I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention is Luis Gil and Clark Schmidt both came back and looked really good. The Clark Nestor piggyback game where the Yankees didn't use any other relievers and both guys were awesome to shut out the Cubs. That was great. Gil obviously came back and was pretty dominant in his start. It was, typical Luis Gil stuff where he'll allow some hard hit balls, he'll strike some guys out, he'll walk some guys, but just really exciting to see. And it gave me so much confidence for what this pitching staff can do and the depth that they added to it, where look like maybe the playoff starters are Cole, Rodon, Schmidt, and Gil. And you have Nestor as available to piggyback. And you don't have to worry about Marcus Stroman, or you can put him in the bullpen. Like, just from the team that had to give Will Warren regular starts for like a couple weeks to be here with its pitching where, Carlos Rodon had some bad luck tonight, but also, gave up some homers, which he does. And that's going to be his fatal flaw. But he had another really good strikeout to walk day. Another good xFIP day. Like, just feels like things are trending in the right direction with the starting pitching. And obviously they've had some struggles with the bullpen. Obviously Clay Holmes had, his worst outing as a Yankee in Texas that night. But I can't help but be excited. But yeah, I have to see more from Schmidt and Gil. I need to make sure that, what's going on there is really legit. And I also need Judge and Soto to show back up, of course. But yeah, I think 8.5 is appropriate. To anyone who's going to be at the Yankees-Royals game on Wednesday, I'll be there, possibly with DJ La MVP, member of the Crosstown Sports family. So please do come say hello. Would love to see and meet anyone. I'm sorry to oh gosh, I can't remember if it was Taylor Jackson or Duffy Sports for the fact that I have not been to a Yankee Stadium weekend game, or I've been to like one in the last however many years. I apologize for that. That will change soon. But Whipple, before we get this thing wrapped up, I just want to throw it to you for any parting shots.
Well, one quick question. If you went to the game the night after you went, would that have been the worst game you've ever been to?
Yes. Like unequivocally, so easily, yes.
What is the worst game, the Santander walk-off home run from last year?
The Santander walk-off home run was really bad. Like the rain delay, the Orioles, just random guys on the Orioles turning into Gold Glovers against the Yankees, losing 1-0 on a walk-off home run. That was really bad. I saw them get waxed by the Red Sox in like 2010 or 2011. Like that game sucked, but the Santander walk-off was really, really bad. But if I had been at the Langford walk-off game, like that might have been it for like watching baseball.
Your Joker arc. You'd be on the podcast, you'd be like, actually, the Yankees are terrible and my confidence is 0. I'm glad for your sake, because that would have been rough. I don't wish that upon anyone. But we're talking playoffs. The Yankees will be in the playoffs. You know, it's almost a certainty at this point. And who's going to start game 1 of whatever series they're in? But Garrett Cole, who's doing really well. Like, I got to shout out, you know, Garrett Cole in his non-Mets games this year, 2.25 ERA. He's really trending up. I think aside from the Washington game, he's gone 6 innings and pretty much like, you know, 2 runs or 1 run in the last like month and a half. I mean, he's just looked, you know, again, aside from those Mets games, he's looked pretty much back to his old self. And, you know, he needs to get the length back for sure, but to go to the 7th, and I don't doubt that he can do that. It's just the stuff being there, the consistency. And if there's even a question about who should start game 1, it's the ace, the guy who is the highest upside, lowest, you know, risk of any of them, and has been an October monster for the Yankees. I mean, we really haven't seen Garrett Cole pitch that many Octobers for the Yankees, just because we had 2020, 2022, but 21, you know, with the injury in the wild card game being abbreviated, and we didn't even get him in his Cy Young season last year. So this is a makeup. I just can't wait for wherever it is, if it's Yankee Stadium, you know, if it's Baltimore, if, you know, wherever they're playing, to see him on the mound at game 1 is going to be awesome. I cannot wait.
7 starts since he last faced the Mets, 40 innings, a 1.58 ERA, 2.46 FIP, 3.43 xFIP. So Garrett Cole, he's here. And I could not be more excited about it. Whipple, that wraps things up for episode 123 of the Yankees Files podcast. People can keep up with everything we do at yankeesfiles.com. They can follow us on Twitter, where we're at Yankees Files. The podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts, with the added bonus of video if you're listening on Spotify. Full video podcast also goes up on YouTube. We're youtube.com/@crosstownsports. Anywhere that you listen to the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, thumbs up, like, 5 stars, whatever the appropriate system is on the platform where you're consuming it. That's if you like it. If you don't like it, just like download it, listen to it a bunch of times on silent, juice our listening numbers, whatever it is. You can also follow Crosstown Sports to get the Battle of New York on Twitter at CrosstownSN. Get that from Joey, Caroline, Rich, Matt, Austin, everyone else. Whipple, that wraps things up for this edition of the Yankees Files podcast. We will be back similar time, similar place next week, when I have some more like furniture and soft things in this room that the sound won't be bouncing off of so aggressively, to recap the week that was with the series against Kansas City and Boston. Until then, let's go Yankees.